Ready to turn it over here to Jim here in a second here. So Jim Lang is a member of the Rotary Club of Trumbull, Connecticut. Jim has performed professionally for over 30 years. He is past president of Ring 59 of the International Brotherhood of Magicians and received the Wizard Award from the National Organization in 2003. He's a member of the Society of American Magicians, the International Magician Society, the International Platform Association, and the Fellowship of Rotarian Magicians. He is listed in a who's who in America and a who's who in the world. Jim has performed across the country in live performances and creates many of his own routines. Jim also has a personal connection to Madison, which he will tell us about. And Jim's going to share with us his experiences presenting magic to Rotarians at meetings, conferences, etc. And also talk about fellowships, including the Magician Fellowship. Please welcome Jim Lang.
Thank you very much. If you cannot hear me, then you can't hear me. But if you can, give me a high sign. Okay, good. We got that part working. That part of the magic is working. That's great. Thanks, Dan, for inviting me to be with you, and I will do some magic for you. But I also want to talk about magic and Rotary. The most famous magician of the last century, who billed himself as the most famous magician in the world, is an Indian magician named P.C. Sokar, S-O-C-A-S-S-A-R-C-A-R, Sokar. And he performed around the world, actually, but he had not performed in the United States. So, but in 1958, the Calcutta Club asked him to join Rotary. And he did. And here he is traveling around the world, and he had perfect attendance. He made up everywhere. In 1960, he was invited by the Kennedy family to go to Boston and perform for an event, you know, that was helping to launch the campaign of one of the Kennedys named Jack, and which he did. But then he took a side trip to Chicago because he thought it would be cool to make up at Rotary One, which he did. And that presentation became famous. And what happened was they said, could you perform your favorite? They, by the way, were hosting the GOP National Convention. The Rotary Club was sponsoring that. That wouldn't happen today, would it? But they were sponsoring that. He said, could you do for us your favorite trick? He said, I can't do that. There's two reasons I can't do it. He said, first of all, the people that paid me to come over here were the Democrats, and I performed for them in Boston. It seems inappropriate that I would do that for you. But the other reason is my favorite trick, said he to the GOP, is vanishing an elephant. They thought it was funny. And he's performed then at some conventions. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that was where Rotary and Magic sort of got together, was thanks to this P.C. Sokar. And it was at Rotary Club One is where it all started. And then more recent years, well, first of all, let me show you something here. Let me step back a little bit so you get a view of this. But those of us that are in this fellowship of Rotary magicians, we like to do magic that maybe can illustrate a magical point. So, for example, whoa! Somebody was saying earlier in the meeting that his wife burned all the money in the family. But I carry this wallet because it's got a $2 bill. When I was the district governor, I gave these away like crazy. Everybody make $2. And I asked them to keep it up for a year, $2 a week for a year, and they could become a sustaining member of the Rotary Foundation, or they could become a Paul Harris Fellow, actually. But at any rate, that's what happened. Now, just imagine, let me put that back in my wallet. Fortunately, it didn't incinerate. Just think what you could do with a $20 bill for the Rotary Foundation. Think of the good work the Rotary Foundation can do. All the lives that can be changed and saved through the projects of the Rotary Foundation. And for those of you in the club that are a little more wealthy and want to do something a little more substantial, just think what you could do with $1 million a week for here. You could really, you could have a named account with that. But at any rate, so that would be an example of a trick that kind of illustrates a rotary point of view. Not all my tricks are like that, but some are. And this one is particularly fun. The photographer here that was here earlier thought that he took a picture. You may see, maybe you'll see that in the Rotary magazine in a few months. He thought that was pretty cool. Also, you guys got a handout. I don't know if you looked at it, had a chance to look at it, but it had some optical illusions on there. And I hope you have a chance to have some fun with those. But also on the second page, it describes a trick, which I'm going to show you now, because this is a great one to learn. You can make this yourself, and you can do this for your grandchildren. They'll be impressed if you do it well, if you practice it first. But it starts with a domino card. It's a domino card with 1 dot, okay? And on the other side of the domino card, there are 6 dots. I turn it over again. Now there's 3 dots, and over here there's but 4. Some of you probably figured this out already, okay? But it looks cool anyway. So on the one side, we had 1 dot. Flip it over, we have 6. But on the other side, there are now 3, and over here, there are now 4. And the description you have tells you how to make it. I needed to show you because I can just do so much with written instructions. But actually on this side, on this first side, there are 2 dots. Now it's important that you make this, if you can, with black cardboard and white dots, which you can buy at an office supply store. You can cut them out. And then the way you hold the card, if you say it's a domino, our minds start thinking, dominoes, I know what those look like, right? There's only one possible domino that looks like this, and that would be 3, right? And if I hold it this way, it would be 1. Same thing on the other side, 4, or if I hold it this way, it looks like 6, okay? So the important thing, and it talks about it in the description, you can brush up by reading the description. The important thing is how you flip the card, okay? So if you're looking at the side, let's go to 1. If we're looking at 1 and we flip it, or 3, we flip it side by side like this, and our hand immediately goes over to cover the blank spot, right? And then if we're on this side, we flip it top to bottom, and there's 3. Over here at 4, over here's 1, 6, and 3, right? Now, if you make this and you're going to perform this, you got to be very careful how you do it, because if you muff up, okay, and accidentally reveal what's under your hand, they'll all see how the trick is done with only the 2 dots, right? Only got the 2. And on the other side, same kind of story. If you move your hand, they'll see that there's only 5 dots. Okay, so you don't want to show those sides, because then they'll see how you did it. Okay, so that's basically how we do this one with the dots. And you can make this, and you could maybe not the last part you can't make, but up to that point at the end, you can make this at home, and you got the instructions to help you. And I think you can have fun with it. Okay, I don't have a particular rotary point to make with that one, but let's talk a little bit about resources. I hope you can all see these cards well. And that is that we've got so much in the way of resources, but just think, we got time, we got some money. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards, right? So they represent, let's say they represent time. So if we take some of our time and we spend it, we use it, okay? So now we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try that again. Okay. Let's say we take some of our resources, 1, 2, and we use those. But when we join with other Rotarians, then it gets leveraged, right? We can do so much more because we now have lots of 1, 2, 3, 4, lots of resources to keep going, because together we're able to use these resources to accomplish a great deal. So let's try that again. This time I think I'll throw away 1, 2, 3 cards. And so now I should only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, that's what happens in Rotary. You know, we put our resources, whether it's our time or whether it's our money, we leverage it with our fellow Rotarians, so that although it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we actually have much more. Okay, it just builds on itself. Sorry about that. My fault. My watch is trying to remind. I unplugged the phone. I didn't unplug the watch. Okay, let's get rid of this one. I don't know. It's 5 or 6 we got here. There we go. The little audio support for me. Thank you very much. One of the things that's happened for me in Rotary is that I've been able to go to Rotary conventions, and like PC SOCOR, I've been able to perform in the House of Friendship, and I did that for many, many years. I haven't done it the last couple of years, but it allowed me to perform in all these different countries for the Rotary conventions. And then I'd go on tours after the conventions, and I would perform on those. So it allowed me to perform in some really cool places. I mean, all over the world, I've been able to perform, and almost all of it, not all of it, but almost all of it's been because of I was there for Rotary conventions. A fun example was, and probably the most exotic one was, that I was in China, and I found some kids gathered around there in a little spot, and I started performing for them on the Great Wall of China. So I performed at the Great Wall of China thanks to Rotary. And that's a little deceptive, isn't it, the statement? But I did perform there, and I did some other things for them as well. The fellowships, and I gave you the link in that enclosure that you may have printed out or view on the screen. But if you look at it on the screen and you click on it, it'll take you to the RI fellowship page that lists all the fellowships that are available. For example, for example, the yachting fellowship, the wine tasting, beer tasting, travel, air pilots. They had a little problem when Barcelona, happened to be in Barcelona, and the pilots were there, and they were flying all around the country till till the plane went down. One of the planes went down, and several Rotarians died on that one. That was not a happy moment. It was a sad moment, but certainly part of Rotary's history with magic and with fellowships. You can join a fellowship. You can join any of the existing fellowships that are there that you're interested in, and there's just something you're interested in. You don't have to be proficient at it. We have a lot of people in we don't have a lot of people in our fellowship because we're the smallest of all fellowships. And the reason is because people that are professional magicians, the majority of them, they can't afford to be in Rotary. Rotary's just a little too rich for the money they make. And of course, I had a career other than magic when I was a bit younger. But look over the list. Think about your banking, stamp collecting. There are all kinds of fellowships. Curling fellowships is featured in the last Rotarian magazine. If you look on the inside back cover, you'll see props for curling, and curling is one of the fellowships. So there are about 80, I think, fellowships right now, and you can form one of your own if you don't find one you like. And if you know some people in other countries, you can get like 3 other countries or 2 other countries, 3 countries altogether. Then Rotary thinks that's sufficient for a international fellowship, that you have 3 countries represented and 12, 13 people to start it out. Hopefully it'll grow from there. And it grows by mostly by going to Rotary conventions and performing in the House of Friendship or showing your wares in the House of Friendship. So there are people that have used the magic of Rotary. And of course, probably you and I think of the Magic Rotary as the magic that you do right there in Madison. Okay, I mean, you got your making brats for the football teams, right? A big fundraiser. I'd love to come to that. You do that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're pronounced brat.
Brats.
Brats.
Brats. I'm sorry.
So I bring my brats sometimes.
Brats. That's okay. You ought to laugh at my expense, and that was fine. At any rate, you guys, that's a regular project you do, and I think it's wonderful. And I'm going to come over and have hot dog. I think that's just great, and what great visibility that is for your club and for Rotary. And I hope you have some brochures in case somebody asks that you can give them about Rotary, and maybe even an invitation to join your club. So that's really all I had prepared to say. And I'm looking at the time, and looks like there's a few more minutes. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them. Don't ask me how it was done.
Let's see.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Tell us how you got interested in magic.
How did I get interested? I got a magic kit when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And by the age of 8, I had learned it well enough that I performed my first show for pay. I performed it for a school carnival, and they paid me $5 for performing. And I loved that. And then through school, I did some more, and I studied a lot. It's not hard. There's not a trick out there that any one of you couldn't do with some investigation and some hard work and practicing and trying to perfect how you do it. Okay. And of course, you're being yourself when you do it. You should be, I think. And that's how I got started. And then I've just, most people outgrow that. I never did.
Jim, where are you from? Like which Rotary club? You probably said that at the beginning.
It's in Trumbull, Trumbull, Connecticut.
Oh, cool.
And that's in Fairfield County, but it's not in the wealthy part of Fairfield County. We're at the other corner. But ironically, Trumbull's a small town. I told this earlier to the chat room, but we have about 60 clubs in our district. And Trumbull is the largest club.
Nice.
Bigger than Greenwich, bigger than Stamford, bigger than New Haven, bigger than New London.
How many members do you have?
Well, we're in the 80s now. Over here, that's big. Okay, that's not necessarily so huge. Other places, all other places. What's the largest club in your district?
Probably, yeah, the downtown Madison club. They have like 500 people. 500
Yep.
people.
Yep.
It's a big one.
Yep. We don't have any of those.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Other questions?
You said you had a connection to Madison?
A convention?
A connection to Madison,
Oh,
Wisconsin.
the distance? No,
I thought
what-
you said you did.
Dan
Dan
Millman did.
Dan said he had a connection.
Oh yeah, do you, we thought in
I-
the introduction.
I have a son and his wife who live in Belleville.
Ah,
Oh, cool.
And I was able to come over, my wife and I several years ago came over and attended. We were guests of a Rotary club, one of your area Rotary clubs, who allowed us to present them with their Paul Harris Fellow Awards. Now, I think
Oh,
we were
that's
all
cool.
hoping that it would gain traction, but it didn't. But they're there.
Nice. Other questions?
How many of these do you perform during a year for other clubs?
For clubs,
motion detected at the front.
4 or 5.
Okay.
4 or 5. That's a lot of what I'm doing. I do birthday parties. I do other club meetings. I'll do town carnivals, library shows. Certainly the largest audiences are at Rotary conferences. I performed at the Zone Institute in London, Ontario a few years ago, and they had an audience of about 500 for that one. That was a big crowd.
Jim, is your son a Rotarian? In Belleville?
I have two sons. They're both Paul Harris fellows. Neither have joined Rotary. I've got one down in down near Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And maybe he'll own up. He's just bought a business. Now he's running a B&B. And I think there may be hope for him, but it's not high on his list. But he maybe, it would be good for his business, I think. And it'd be good for him. And I think he's got a lot of gifts that he could offer. So it'd be good all around. So I'll keep working on that one.
Jim, will you be at the House of Friendship in Houston this year?
Not planning on it right now. That could change, but I'm not planning on it. Like a lot of us, I'm trying to avoid long trips. The part that I believe that's being said is that I do believe that, staying away from a lot of big crowds is a good idea.
Yeah.
Other questions? All right, sorry, it's been very entertaining. We make a donation on behalf of all our speakers to the End Polio Now fund of Rotary International, and we will do that in your name as well. So we can continue getting closer to the goal of eradicating polio worldwide.
Thank you
Sorry,
very much.
Mike. Yeah, thank you. My laptop died, so I'm like on my phone. So, so that's why I'm staring into this little device. All right, so I think it looks like Dan had to maybe drop off, but I wanted to plug our speaker for next week, who is Lori Bessler. She is with the Wisconsin Historic Society, and she will be talking to us about genealogy and researching your family history.
Yay.
So again, we will be in room 201, the community room, the Goodman South Campus of Madison College, which is down by the Beltline and 4th Street. Sign up for your meal by Thursday this week, and excited to see everybody there next Monday. So have a great Rotary week.
Aaron, please have international.
Safe travel.
I'm glad that you guys.
I don't have any.